The Mystara project is proud to present Part 9 of the Places of Mystara series. In this video, we shall look at the xenophobic Emirate of Abbashan. The Emirate of Abbashan was first introduced in Gaz II, the Emirates of Alaruam, published in 1987. Abbashan is the eastern emirate, bordering Nithia to the north, Alasia to the west and Nicostenia to the south. Its coast fronts the western Sea of Dawn to the east. The emirates are located in the southeast of the northern continent of Brunei. Abbashan covers 4,536 square miles, has a latitude of 40 degrees north of the equator, and a longitude of 29 degrees west of the Sundsvall meridian. According to the Abbashani, long ago, the guardian immortals shaped the multiverse and in their wisdom, they cast the Alasians into the harsh desert. Not as punishment, but as a trial. A crucible to forge strength, character, and resolve. Other peoples and creatures were born of the immortals' will, not to rule, but to test the Alasians. And so the desert became sacred, a proving ground, a home. Tribes endured, they traded, they raided, they survived. Outsiders came, infidels, drawn by greed or conquest, but none could match the Alasians in their own land. The desert swallowed them. Then came the great prophet, bearer of the eternal truth, visionary of honor and justice. He united the tribes beneath one banner, and cast out the unbelievers. His line endures. But in the years since his passing, the Hazar, soft of hand, silver of tongue, have risen. Their council of preceptors now holds sway in the courts. We tolerate their politics, for now. Peace is a fragile gift. But the kin remain the true guardians of the eternal faith. The majority of the population of Abbashan comprises humans of Alasian ethnicity. Some people of the coastal town of Jabor have Alsatian ancestry. Likewise, in Fabia, some of the populace have Thracian ancestry. Nocturnal fighting fennec lupins inhabit the desert and are known to be ardent believers in the eternal truth. The Alasians often tell the legend of the return of Ul-Kalim, the living king, Shari Zindar. When the crescent breaks and the flame dims low, the living king shall rise from below. With sword of light and voice of sand, he shall reclaim his people's land. Alasian nomads traverse the shifting sands with the confident certainty of those who belong to the desert. Tall and slight of build, they are shaped by the sun and wind, their movements fluid and deliberate, wasting no energy in a land where excess is punished. Their skin bears the deep bronze of relentless sun, creased by wind and time. Faces are clean-shaven, revealing high cheekbones and narrow jaws, often partially veiled by cloth to guard against sandstorms. Eyes, sharp and dark, peer from beneath wrapped headcloths, always scanning the horizon. Loose white cloth trousers and long shirts of cotton or wool are chosen for breathability and modesty. A flowing robe drapes over the body, offering protection and anonymity. A dark leather belt, cracked and sun-softened, clasps a curved scimitar at the hip, both tool and symbol of honor. Depending on terrain, they wear soft leather boots, simple sandals, or go barefoot when ritual or stealth demands. Alasian rural peasants and urban commoners wear plain gaiters, white or sand-colored, wrapped snugly around their heads. A short, trimmed moustache and beard frame male jaws, neat, but not ornamental. They walk barefoot or in simple leather sandals. Their clothing is modest, loose cotton or coarse woolen trousers, a plain shirt, and a long robe, often earth-toned, sometimes faded with age. Unlike other emirates, the wealthy of Abbashan are less ostentatious, as luxuries are frowned upon. In Abbashan, every gesture keeps a promise. Customs bind law to daily breath, and rituals frame honorable behavior. True believers begin and close their days the same, 2 meditations, at sunrise and sunset. The practice is the measure of a life lived in alignment with the immortal guardians. On the 15th of each month the faithful fast from sunset to sunset, spanning the night of the full moon. The fast is broken with a communal feast where part of the meal is set aside for the poor, a symbolic offering to the immortal guardians, and a reminder that abundance must be shared. When wise counsel or a delightfully instructive tale uplifts another, a tashrif, a robe of honor, may be given by the wealthy in gratitude. In Abbashan, honors are austere, robes seldom exceed 1,000 dinars. Wearing a tashrif is reserved for special occasions. When two or more true believers meet, the water ritual begins. It may be a wet finger salute, or an elaborate tea and coffee ceremony with ornamental cups, and recited and improvised verses. Exchanges of news, escalating compliments precede business, diplomatic or social events. Lying to a true believer is a grave sin. Truth is sealed by a ritual oath, declaring, by Al-Kalim and the eternal truth, I swear. Or is formally sworn before a cleric, paladin, or dervish. Oathbreakers wear the curse of the immortal guardians and the scorn of the community. Every true believer owes attendance to the security of their fellow man. At a minimum, this means arms for the poor. When officially called, they take up arms against the unbelievers to defend the faithful. Violence against true believers is generally forbidden. To attack a true believer, one must denounce them as unrighteous, or secure a magistrate's judgment, or goad them to attack, so self-defense can be relied upon. Judgment itself is a methodical ritual, requiring observation, the weighing of evidence, and patient, solemn judgment based on knowledge, not superstition or tradition. In Abbashan, literature not relating to the eternal truth is generally frowned upon. Reading, reciting and studying Al-Kalim's life's work, recorded in the Nameh, is expected of true believers. Pilgrimage is encouraged for those physically capable and able to afford time away from work. Some of the most capable of adventurers try to reenact Al-Kalim's journey to the undersea kingdom. Most pilgrims just travel to a sanctuary of learning, like Ilaruum city. Undertaking a pilgrimage brings honor to the pilgrims and their hosts. However, this custom has become less pious and more like a holiday for some in more recent times. Inns and hostelries benefit from pilgrims who can afford their hospitality. Poorer pilgrims make camps. Pilgrims bring news and excitement to rural areas on the caravan routes. When travelers return, be they friends, relatives, or retainers, hosts hold lavish feasts. Speeches convey how much the guest was missed, the traveler replies with tales of distant places. Gifts are exchanged, and the bond between host and traveler is renewed. Abbashan's customs are not mere ceremony. They are the scaffolding of a people, rules of truth, hospitality and honor that shape both the Hazzar's home and the nomad's tent. Abbashan is a land of striking contrasts, where life clings to water and terrain shapes destiny. In the west of the emirate, lies the Abbashan Oasis, which is classified as borderlands. It covers an area of 500 square miles. Though the surrounding desert receives less than 10 inches of annual rain, careful irrigation and water management sustain intensive agriculture. Here, communities thrive, 30 to 60 people per square mile, supporting a population in the range of 15,000 to 30,000. The middle coastal plain offers a gentler, subhumid climate. Rainfall ranges from 20 to 30 inches annually, nurturing native grasses, shrubs, trees, and fertile farmland. The coast is classified as settled, although it is semi-arid. This region can support a rural population in the range of 29,120 to 50,960, which can support an urban population between 10% and 20% of the rural populace. To the west, a dramatic escarpment rises 200 feet at the lowest point and up to 500 feet at its highest point, marking the edge of the plain. The altitude drops several hundred feet in the last few miles before the coast. Beyond the settled lands lies the Alasian desert wilderness, a high plain of exposed rock and shifting sand. Rain is scarce at less than 10 inches per year, vegetation sparse, and population density drops to fewer than one person per square mile. Yet even here, life persists. Hardy grasses and adapted flora support nomadic herds, clustered around oases and ancient wadis. To the northwest lies the Great Salt Basin, an administrative province devoid of life. Its barren expanse marks the final frontier of Abbashan's geography, a reminder of nature's extremes. From oasis to salt basin, Abbashan is a land of resilience and adaptation. Its geography tells a story, not just of terrain, but of the people who are shaped by it. Abbashan has 3 main settlements. The capital town of Abbashan, a relatively clean settlement at the center of the Abbashan oasis. Jabor, a port town founded by Alphatian colonists, and the port town of Fabia, which was founded by Thyacian colonists, but later conquered by Alphatia. Only one Abbashani tribe was mentioned in published materials, the Awamir. The Awamir nomads claim the whole of the Alasian desert as their tribal lands. They often guard caravans from their summer encampment at Abbashan. They are fanatical followers of the Kin faction. They are very hostile to foreigners and unbelievers, hurling insults and issuing challenges at every opportunity. They are nasty, humorless and rigidly traditional. The town of Abbashan possibly has two Hazar tribes, the Waila and their rivals, the Yam. In addition to the Awamir, the Murrah, Subay and Suhul could also make their summer encampments in the Abbashan oasis. Jabor could be populated by the Bait Kathir Hazar tribe. Nomadic tribes who camp in the coastal plain around Jabor in the summer could include the Mara, Bani Hajir, Dayin and Dafir. Fabia could be occupied by the Awazim Hazar tribe. They work terraced farms that produce wheat, coffee, ginger and fruits. They support the Preceptor faction. Originally from Hedjazi, they migrated after an intertribal conflict and a famine. They fought against both the Alphatians and the Thyacians. The Ghani Khalid, Shihu, Amalisa and Batahira tribes could all encamp for the summer in the coastal plain around Fabia. The Batahira are a poor tribe, who lost many members in the colonial wars. They now survive by nocturnal fishing from cliff ledges and gathering small sea creatures from the coastal waters and beaches. The Abbashani ethos is carved from hardship and faith. Life is a struggle, against the desert, against unbelief. Honor, toughness, and devotion are the pillars of survival. First comes the word. If it fails, the scimitar speaks. Work is sacred, but never above duty. In the heat of midday, the desert demands stillness. The Abbashani rest, pray, reflect. Their toil continues when the sun relents. Nomads do not recognize land ownership, who gets what is determined by might and power. For Hazar tribes, land outside the towns is mostly communally owned under the administration of the local tribal chief. Some land may be granted or sold by the nobility to private owners. The Abbashani towns are owned under charter granted to the settlement by the emir. Guilds, nobles, individuals, and businesses then lease land from the town. Dominion land, like emirates, sheikdoms, and chiefdoms, is not owned by the local ruler. Frivolity is frowned upon. Laughter is rare. The Abbashani are austere, their humor buried beneath layers of duty and reverence. Arts and crafts are rather subdued in Abbashan. There is a limited market for artists, as their works are only sold domestically. Additionally, luxury goods are frowned upon, which further hampers artists from making a living. Overall, arts and crafts in Abbashan are not of the best quality. Substantial intensive agriculture in the Abbashan oasis yields millet, barley, olives, dates, nuts, vegetables, and fruit. On the coastal plain, grains, cotton, coffee, tea, spices, sugarcane, and grapes are grown. The sea offers little, fish has to be imported. The Batahira tribe undertakes subsistence fishing. The men angle mainly for snapper and bream. Some hunt crabs, lobsters, octopi, and squid. The women collect mussels, oysters, and sea snails. Abbashan is not known for its mining. Silica is extracted from the desert and salt is drawn from the Great Salt Basin. Merchants are not very successful in Abbashan, as they are generally restricted to local markets. The Abbashani are very militaristic and are prepared to use war to achieve their aims. However, women are forbidden from serving in the armed forces. Clerical and druidic magic are respected. However, sorceress magic is distrusted, unless it is sanctioned by the Sorcerers Guild. Necromantic and fire-based magic is forbidden. It is a male-dominated culture. Women serve, guide, nurture, but never march to war. Life is austere, pious, and shaped by the eternal truth. The Abbashani do not seek comfort. They seek honor. In the silence of the desert, their spirit endures, unyielding, faithful, eternal. As foreigners are unwelcome in Abbashan, the choice of character classes for Abbashani natives is restricted. Fighters are the most common character class among the Abbashani. Thieves are the next most frequent class. Sentences for theft can be harsh, However, judges can be swayed if the accused persuade a judge to view the crime as living up to the nomadic traditions. Clerics of the Eternal Truth are the next most common class. Magic users are called sorcerers in the Emirates. There are a few in Abbashan, some native, others descended from assimilated Alphatians from the coastal plain. Mystics are located in remote desert monasteries. They are true believers, study science, water, magic, the stars, and pacifist combat skills. The only non-humans accepted by the Abbashani are the fighting Fennec lupins. They are known to be native true believers, however they are not treated as equals by the human-centric Abbashani. A dwarf who was a true believer and who had something to offer could be tolerated by the xenophobic Abbashani, but would not be considered an equal. Halflings avoid the Emirates, as they tend to be treated as children by the Alasians. Elves are considered rude and offensive for the close-mouthed and haughty manners of their ambassadors. The Abbashani suspect them of practicing black magic and gruesome rituals. There are no traditional druids in the Emirates, which is not surprising given the scarcity of vegetation. Lycanthropes are fanatically destroyed by the true believers when they are found. Despite this deadly danger, some werats can be found in the coastal towns. Similar to dwarfs, gnomes would only be tolerated if they were true believers and offered a benefit to society. This table can be used to determine the tribe and place of origin for each character class native to Abbashan. Social status in Abbashan is determined by a combination of family background, wealth, beliefs, reverence, and achievements. If an emir is very wealthy, fanatically devoted to the eternal truth and has accomplished great achievements that benefit the emirate, he will probably have the highest social standing in Abbashan. At the other end of the scale would be an unbelieving Glantrian beggar, who had made no contributions to Abbashan. Player characters will likely start out with very low social status, with being a true believer contributing the most, and family background possibly adding some more status, especially for nomads. Wealth, reverence, and achievements can be accumulated as the characters succeed in their careers. To determine social status, assign a value from 0 to 5 for each factor, which will produce a score from 0 to 25, the higher the better. Occupation can be determined by family background. A wide range of vocations are possible for the Abbashani Hazar tribes, with 47% working on the oasis farms. The port towns have similar numbers, although there are more fishermen and sailors. Jabor has more sages. The Batahira tribe are much more sea-oriented than the other nomad tribes, so they have their own table. The nomads have a narrower range of occupations. Fighting Fennec lupins have the narrowest range. Mystics have a varied range of vocations, revolving around crafts, food, and teaching. Alasian names can be generated from this table. Fennec lupins also use Alasian names. Males will usually add son of their father's name after their given name by using ul, ibn, or bin, although ul can be used to mean the. Females use bint to denote daughter of, and then their father's name. Other descriptors include abu for father of, for mother of, abid for servant or slave of, and min to denote from. For example, Abbas bin Abdullah min Abbashan the lion would indicate that Abbas, son of Abdullah, is from Abbashan and is nicknamed the lion. Abbas would omit min Abbashan if he was in Abbashan, as that would be assumed. Abi bint Abdul the pure of the Awamir would mean Abi is the daughter of Abdul, she is nicknamed the pure and she belongs to the Awamir tribe. Abu Abid Ahmed would indicate that Abu is the servant or slave of Ahmed. Most Abbashani characters are lawfully aligned. Clerics of the eternal truth cannot be chaotic. Alasians are considered tall, with males averaging 5'7" and females averaging 5'2". They are generally slightly built, so their weight is usually less than the averages shown in the rules cyclopedia. Fighting Fennec lupins range from 2'10" to 3'11", determined by 31 inches plus their strength score. Their weight ranges from 243 coin to a comparatively heavy 1,790 coin, and is determined by multiplying their height by their strength, then dividing by 4.2. At least one appearance hook and one distinctive mannerism should be chosen for each character. Some suggestions are listed here. Use the Mystara player's survival kit to determine the character's family. We are not told of the minimum starting character age for Alasians, but it could be 15. Alasian families include grandparents, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, spouses, children, grandchildren, nephews, and nieces. Fostering is practiced by the Alasians. Lupins age similarly to humans, but can live a decade longer. General skill choices in Abbashan tend toward coping with the harsh environment and devotion to the eternal truth. Desert survival and knowledge of irrigation are popular intelligence skills. Eternal truth ceremonies rely on wisdom. Horse and camel riding suit dexterous characters. Spellcasters also favor skills that assist them to cast while mounted. In Abbashan, the lowest social class are the unbelievers, sentient beings who do not follow the eternal truth. Of these unbelievers, non-humans rank lower than humans. They are considered dishonest and the Abbashani are openly hostile to them. Slaves comprise the next social class above unbelievers. Slavery is illegal in the Emirates, except for non-payment of debt. Slaves serve for 1 to 5 years to pay off their debt. They only comprise about 2% of the urban population. The next social class is probably the largest among the Hazar. It comprises urban servants and rural fellahs, known in other lands as peasants. Next are the foreigners who have converted to the eternal truth and been accepted as genuine true believers, like the dwarfs, and assimilated Alphatians and Thyacians. The native fighting Fennec Lupins, proven true believers, are next. Followed by the Markistani. The middle classes rank next, comprising modest merchants and artisans, soldiers, and minor bureaucrats. The nomadic tribespeople rank next, held in high regard by the traditional Abbashani. Then there are the wealthy, military officers and the nobility. Clerics of the eternal truth are granted slightly different spells to standard clerics. Instead of the first-level spell Resist Cold, they have access to the Detect Water spell to assist the pursuit of the Desert Garden Dream. For 20 minutes, this spell allows the cleric to sense the location and quantity of water within 300 feet. At second level, clerics can cast Poetic Inspiration. This spell functions as the Bless spell, except it is cast via inspirational poetry and can give a +1 bonus to reaction rolls, if the listener can understand the cleric's language. Truth-telling is a third-level spell that replaces the second-level spell, Confuse Alignment, which is the reverse of No Alignment. It is used to bind a sworn oath. If the oath is broken, a curse is bestowed on the oath-breaker. Unbelievers may save at -4 to avoid the curse, but true believers get no save. Finally, Eternal Truth clerics are granted the third-level spell, No Destiny, instead of Growth of Plants. The cleric may use this spell to ask one question to the guardian immortals. A response is not guaranteed, and if forthcoming will be a cryptic hint or admonishment for not being more self-reliant, or point out where the cleric has not well served the articles of faith. Sorcerers have access to the standard magic user spell list. Those of Alphatian ancestry may have also access to that culture's wider spell list. Black magic is illegal in the Emirates. This comprises fire-based and necromantic magic, which is employed by the Magian fire worshipper cult of unbelievers. Alasian is the official language of Abbashan, and the locals expect foreigners to speak it. Some of the assimilated colonists also speak their ancestral tongues of Alphatian or Thyacian. The Fennics speak Alasian in addition to their ancestral Lupin tongue. Alasian is written in a different script to most other languages. It is possibly up to 750 years old, but may only be as old as the Confederation itself. It is possibly a fusion of the Alphatian and Thyacian writing systems introduced in the colonial period. Being a militaristic emirate, weapons are in high demand in Abbashan. Almost every adult is armed with at least a kugla, which is a curved dagger, for self-defense. The yataghan is a large double-edged scimitar. It is mainly used for ceremonial purposes, as the double edge adds unnecessary weight to the slicing attack of the curved blade, without the benefit of a thrusting attack afforded by straight blades. The lance is one of the weapons required to join the Emirates' military orders. It is used in jousting tournaments and is wielded by warrior members of the elite knights of the Rose and Faris. Military order candidates also require a spear to practice with before moving on to using the pike. Throwing hammers are also required for entry to the military orders. While rarely used in battle, They can be useful to strike a heavily armed opponent at range. The short bow is the missile weapon of choice for the armed forces. It is required for entry into the military orders. It is used by the mounted archers of the Order of the Arrow, the Sultan's peacekeeping guard, the military, and the Marines. Clerics joining the military orders require a mace instead of the lance and spear. If successful, they can join the Order of the Mace. The melee weapon of choice is the scimitar, which is wielded by all the armed forces and desert nomad warriors alike. Due to the hot climate, the regular armed forces and the desert nomads avoid wearing armor. Chain mail and shields are required to enter the military orders. They continue to be used by the Order of the Pike, Palace Guards, the Order of the Mace, and the Knights of the Desert Rose. The Emirate of Abbashan is below average in natural resources and suffers from a lack of foreign trade, with no recognized overland trade routes. Dates are harvested in the Abbashan Oasis and the Middle Coastal Plain. They are a staple in the local diet and are traded to the nomads of the desert and coastal plain. Wheat is also harvested from the coastal plain and the oasis. Camel-powered mills grind it to flour, and then bakers make flatbread, a staple of the commoners. Flatbread is also traded to the nomads. Alfalfa is also grown in the coastal plain and the oasis. It is mainly used as fodder for livestock, but acts as food of last resort in times of famine. It is also traded to the local nomads. Lamb and mutton are the most common meats consumed in Abbashan. Local nomads trade their sheep to the towns. The common folk regularly have lamb stews, whilst the more affluent enjoy legs of lamb. Wool is spun into cloth and carpets by town weavers. Some of this produce is traded to local nomads. Nomads trade chickens and eggs to the townsfolk. Chicken is not as common as lamb, but is more common than beef. Goats traded to the towns by the nomads are a source of meat and dairy products, such as milk, butter, and cheese. The wealthy enjoy a type of cream called kaimak. Less common are cattle products, beef, leather, milk, cheese, and butter. These are also traded to the towns by the nomads. Whilst camels are prized for desert transportation, they are also a source of milk. Nomads trade camels to the townsfolk as well. Barley is harvested on the coastal plain and the oasis. It is used to make porridge, another staple of the commoners, and it is also traded to the nomads. Cucumbers are produced in the oasis and traded to the nomads. They are a popular cool vegetable. Apples are also grown in irrigated orchards of the oasis and traded to the nomads. The drinking of alcohol is a religious offense in the Emirates, punishable by public censure. However, wine is in demand in the town of Jabor, possibly to cater for a few foreign merchants, and possibly some assimilated Alsatians. A wine made from soaking and fermenting dates is made in Fabia, possibly by assimilated Thyacians and then exported to Jabor. Coffee and tea are imported, mainly from Dithystina and Nicostina. Coffee is grown in the Jabor area and exported to the rest of the Emirates' populace. They are in high demand by Hazzar and nomad alike. The Awamir tribe sometimes buys surplus coffee for trading to other regions as far as Salonika. Olives are grown and harvested for food and oil. Olive oil is particularly abundant in Jabor. Olives and their oil are consumed locally and traded to the nomads. Nuts, peppers, quinces, peaches, limes, oranges, citrons, lemons, melons, myrtle berries, pomegranates, and grapes are also produced for consumption locally and for trade with the nomads. Fishing in the Western Sea of Dawn does not yield enough food to satisfy local demand. Fish is in particular demand in Fabia. Salt is extracted from the Great Salt Basin in the north and consumed locally. Nomads train hawks and eagles to hunt game for local consumption and to trade with the Hazzar. Quails, doves, and hares are hunted, the latter is mainly for the wealthy. Coastal plain farmers harvest millet for local consumption and some is traded to the nomads. Spices are in high demand in Jabor. Minrathad traders bring them to Jabor from markets in Arsla and Malfton. Fine horses are currently in high demand in Abbashan, as the emir looks to build up his military. Nomad tribes sell horses and mules to the Hazzar. Silica is extracted from the desert and used to make glass. Jabor produces a lot of glassware, some of which is traded to the nomads. Dyes and pigments are made in Fabia, some of which are traded to the nomads. Fabia imports common wood, which is scarce throughout the Emirates. The wood mainly comes from the Yaldams to the north. Fabia produces a lot of silk. Preserved Corendon beef is imported to Jabor via Minrothadan merchants. Due to the build-up of the Abbashani armed forces, the importing of good quality scimitars, short bows, and military tack has increased. As the troops receive this equipment, their existing weapons are being placed for sale at bargain prices. Fennec lupins eat rats, lizards, eggs, insects, fruit and roots. They trade with nomads and raid unbeliever caravans. The Emirate of Abbashan is governed by Emir Saeed Naji, who was appointed by Sultan Muhammad al-Khalim of the Confederated Tribes of the Emirates of Ilaruam. He can also be removed by the Sultan. Most government functions are performed by the bureaucracy, which is headed by the National Grand Vizier, based in Ilaruam city. Subordinate to the national bureaucracies are the bureaucracies of each emirate. Grand Vizier Sharif ibn Murad of Abbashan advises the emir. The bureaucracy supervises and administers the laws and edicts of the land. It is also responsible for detailed record-keeping. Each small tribe is ruled by a hereditary chief called a Qadi. Larger tribes or confederated tribes are ruled by hereditary sheikhs. Player characters from Abbashan would be aware of the sanctuaries of the Eternal Truth, from which prayer leaders deliver sermons instructing the people on the articles of faith and judge religious law cases. The priesthood of the Eternal Truth is open to all who follow the way of the scholar, but most are clerics. Clerical training can be undertaken in these sanctuaries. The Sorcerers' Guild is fairly small in Abbashan, as the locals are suspicious of sorcery. The largest guild is in Jabor, whose population are more magically inclined due to some Alphatian ancestry. Magic user characters may seek training at the guild. Children of affluent families, who are not in line to inherit titles or wealth, are often raised to follow the way of the warrior from a young age. At around age 14, they can compete in one of the military orders examination tournaments, if they have their own horse, chain mail armor, shield, lance, spear, throwing hammer, and short bow. Sorcerers only require a horse, whilst the only weapons required for a cleric are the mace and throwing hammer. As the full set of required equipment can cost around 342 dinars, children of nomad, fellah, and artisan families can't afford this expense. The less wealthy usually risk adventuring to afford the equipment, or they may be donated the gear by their tribe, or a wealthy sponsor, if they show martial promise. The examination tournaments are held on a regular basis, and involve a variety of tests and competitions. Mounted competitions test dexterity and riding skills, such as firing an arrow or throwing a hammer or a spear from horseback at a target, galloping at full speed through a rocky desert obstacle course, fighting in mock melee whilst mounted, polo team trials, and casting a spell whilst mounted and under fire for spellcasters. Strength is tested by carrying comrades up a hill. Endurance is tested by the full gear, full day's desert march. Questions about the Nameh test wisdom. Mock battles assess leadership. Optional jousts require warhorse ownership, but count toward final scoring. Abbashani fighters from urban areas mainly seek to join the Order of the Pike. To qualify, they need to excel at the strength and endurance tests in the tournaments. They are trained as heavy infantry pikemen for assignment as palace guards or urban troops in the Emirates military. The Order of the Arrow is dominated by Markistani mounted archers. However, some Abbashani were taught this skill from a young age, and are considered to be born in the saddle. Admission to the order depends on successful riding checks to fire accurately, whilst mounted and under counterfire. Additionally, above-average endurance must be demonstrated, especially in harsh conditions. The most promising successful applicants are assigned to the Sultan's Peacekeeping Guard, an elite force that patrols remote areas of the Emirates. The remainder are assigned to the military, where they fight unarmored with bows and scimitars, as the core troop type. Prayer leaders and itinerant clerics who follow the way of the scholar are also able to follow the way of the warrior via the Order of the Mace. To qualify, they must display leadership, healing ability, above-average wisdom and endurance, and knowledge of the Eternal Truth. Once accepted, they are assigned as officers or healers to either palace guards or the military divisions. Sorcerers with exceptional riding skill, endurance, and ability to maintain casting concentration under fire may qualify for the order of the spell. Very few Abbashani pursue this path. Successful applicants are trained as university instructors or elite skirmishers and scouts in the military. Members of the military orders who build a fine reputation through service and dedication to the way of the eternal truth may be selected to join the Order of the Lance, as Knights of the Desert Rose, by the Council of the Desert Rose. These knights are usually made captains of royal or elite guard units, or made pharises by an emir, or the sultan, by swearing a truth-telling oath of fealty. Like Thyatis, the Emirate's calendar is comprised of 12 months, 28 days per month, and 7 days a week. Unlike the Thyatians, they mark New Year's Day on the first day of the fourth month, Flormont, of the Thyatian calendar. We are not told of how the Emirates record years. Perhaps they count them from the founding of the Confederation, almost 169 years ago. So the current year would be 168 SC or since Confederation, changing to 169 SC on the 1st of Rabi al-Thani. As mentioned earlier, the monthly fast is held on the 15th of each month, broken by the feast on the evening of the 16th. Other regular events include open court with the emir, after attending the sanctuary of the Eternal Truth services. Theoretically, open court allows any subject to petition the emir. However, in practice few get the chance, as most of the allotted time is usually wasted by long speeches from bureaucrats and other palace officials. The Feast of Ul-Kalim occurs on the 6th of Jumada al-Thani in summer. It is a major festival, featuring contests between local and regional champions, spanning riding and martial events. Military order examination tournaments are also held during this festival. Now let's hear from 4 characters about their views on Abbashan. Muammar, a Nicostinian merchant, Victor, a Traladeran tavern patron, Jamal, a young nomad partner of a merchant caravan outfitter in Ilaruum, and Faisal ibn Yasir, a member of the Order of the Arrow, speaking in AC 1013.
Abbashan is an expanded emirate centered on 3 rows, but recently expanded because, dominated by allies nomads intensely hostile to foreigners, certainly no bless for you, Mishobtankas.
Abbashani is a big oasis full of exceptionally nasty people.
Abbashan is a city like Ilaruum, but further says mine are not southern corrupt in Abbashan like they are in Ilaruum. In Abbashan they are quite strict with the heathens and greedy merchants. The cities and towns of the Emirates are all good markets for fine crafts and imported luxuries, except Abbashan, where they frown on luxury and frivolity. Abbashan is a clean of town, but in unprofitable market for anything but coffee, weapons, and fine horses.
Unlike other cultures, Alasians do not mark the coming of age as a number. Instead it occurs after puberty, ranging from 9 to 15 years old. Abbashan has no roads and its trails are so poor, they are not marked on foreign maps. Nomad trails run from the town of Abbashan to the Great Salt Basin, the Middle Coastal Plain and Hedjazi. An armed merchant caravan braves the poor trail to Ilaruum city every week or 2. Pilgrims also take this route. Banditry is common. It is rumored that the emir is seeking brave adventurers to clear the eastern desert of dangers, so trails able to accommodate caravans can be blazed to the coastal ports. Adventurers, who are Alasian true believers, are considered useful by the Abbashani. Fennec Lupin's adventurers are considered loyal to the eternal truth, but can be insulted by prejudiced comments. Fighters, clerics, and paladins are admired. Oath-bound guild sorcerers are seen as necessary to counter potential black magic attacks. Whilst there are harsh penalties for theft, thieves can receive light sentences if they can impress as followers of traditional desert nomad raiding customs. Now we shall cover the real history of Abbashan. Before recorded history, while the rest of southeast Brune was covered in ice, what would become the Alasian Basin was a river-valley microclimate, due to it being heated by gates to the elemental plane of fire. The fertile river was surrounded by desert, and to the south were swamps. Lizard men are the first known sentient beings to exist in the region, occupying the southern swamps. Although, blue dragons may have arrived in the desert earlier. In BC 2000, 500 years after the ice sheets had receded from most of southeast Brune, the mixed Nether-Oltec, Nithian tribe settled in the river valley. Agriculture commenced in the land now referred to as Nithia. Nithia grew into an empire that was Mystara's greatest civilization since the Great Reign of Fire. Sometime between BC 1100 and BC 550, Nithians brought back Alasian subjects from the Isle of Dawn. The Alasians were also of mixed Nether and Oltec ancestry and had possibly migrated east to the Dawn territories prior to the Great Reign of Fire. Sometime after BC 1050, some Hutakans left their valley and migrated to Nithia. Some of these migrants bred with other species like gnolls, foo dogs, and blink dogs producing lupins. Hutakans that bred with desert foxes produced the fighting fennec lupins. In BC 500, the corrupted Nithian Empire is wiped from the face of the earth by the Immortals. They divert the headwaters of the river Nithia, which leads to the desertification of the valley. The dry river bed begins to sink into the sands as the northern highlands form. Alasian tribes withdraw to the desert and adopt a nomadic lifestyle, leaving degenerate Nithians to languish on the coastal plain. In AC 0, the Alasians created their first agricultural settlements on the coast and interior oases. The settlers are referred to as Hazzar to distinguish them from the nomads. Sometime between AC 0 and AC 800, the village of Abbashan was founded by a man named Abbas. The village of Jabor was founded on the coast by the Bani Khalid tribe. In AC 250, imperial expansion reached the middle coastal plain. Thyatis founded the settlement of Fabia in the south, naming it after Emperor Fabius. Not to be outdone, Thyatis's rival empire, Alphatia, invaded the middle coastal plain from the north, conquering Jabor. The Alasians who failed to flee are enslaved. Between AC 250 and AC 500, the Alasian tribes fought among themselves and against the imperial invaders. They also traded and communicated with, in an awkward fashion, the imperial colonists, which assisted their cultural and technological development. In AC 500, a series of bitter disputes led to Alphatia and Thyatis commencing an intermittent colonial war on the Alasian coastal plain that would last for centuries. During this war, Alasian tribes fought for both empires in the colonial wars and often bore the brunt of the fighting. During the war, the Alphatians took Fabia from the Thyacians. The colonial administrations became more cruel with their Alasian subjects as the war dragged on. Some Alasian tribes managed to withdraw to the desert. There they incited their kin's anger with tales of the cruelty of the invaders. Sometime between AC 825 and AC 826, a young charismatic tribal leader, Suleiman al-Kalim, conqueror of the village of Alaruam, rode into the Abbashan oasis with his army of more than 10,000. The Abbashani listened to his talk of tribal unity against the invaders and decided to join the Alasian tribes under his banner. Al-Kalim's pitch to the Abbashani was no doubt assisted by the judicious use of his ring of human control. In AC 826, Al-Kalim revealed his dream of justice and honor to his followers. He told them that if you live your public and private lives justly and honorably, the Immortals and others will treat you with justice and honor. This hit a chord with the sheiks and qadis, and they set aside their tribal differences for this romantic ideal. The united tribes then proceeded to conquer the degenerate Nithians of Sinsamenu, followed by the Markistani settlement of Parsa after a tough battle. Al-Kalim skillfully swayed the Markistani to his dream of justice and honor, and they agreed to fight the colonial powers under his banner. The Thyacian capital of Ctesiphon in the province of Dithystina was then successfully taken. In AC 827, Al-Kalim started the campaign against the Alphatians. Before the campaign started, Al-Kalim persuaded the Alasian cavalry auxiliaries serving the Alphatians to switch sides. The Alphatian magical units were thinned out by the Markistani mounted archers, before being routed by a charge of the Alasian cavalry that had maneuvered around the poor-quality Alphatian infantry. The Alphatians fled and the towns of Suramanra and Fabia threw open their gates to Al-Kalim. Alphatia was finally expelled from the region after the successful siege of Jabor in AC 827. In AC 831, the year after the fall of the final Thyacian stronghold, Al-Kalim organized the inaugural tribal convocation in Alaruam. In his opening speech, he introduced the dream of the desert garden as a huge irrigation goal to unify the tribes. Despite opposition from the more conservative attendees, The convocation agreed to channel as many resources as possible into irrigating the desert. Al-Khalim skillfully engineered the attendees into asking him to act as the first sultan of the newly confederated tribes of the Emirates of Al-Aruam. The confederation was codified in a written constitution by Al-Khalim with the help of many scholars, chiefs, and wise men. The Emirate of Abbashan was created at this time, comprising the Abbashan oasis and surrounding desert. Al-Khalim appointed one of his relatives as the first emir. Perhaps an older cousin, named Feud bin Mukhtar. Meanwhile in Al-Aruam, Al-Khalim is supported by wise advisors, including Farid. Also at this time, the Ghani Khalid tribe was founded near Fabia by Khalid ibn al-Walid, a general of Sulayman al-Khalim. The tribe was formed from the confederation of a number of tribes in the area. Around AC 855, Al-Khalim and his faithful companion Farid wrote the Nameh, which set out the way of the eternal truth, the articles of faith, an allegorical telling of his pilgrimage to the Old Man of the Sea, the dream of justice and honor, and the dream of the desert garden. Scribes make copies and distribute them to the tribal chiefs. In AC 858, Al-Khalim's advisors of chiefs, wise men, and scholars formally became the Council of Preceptors to govern in his absence and to assist the Sultan to choose a successor. In AC 900, the death of Al-Khalim is reported. The Kin faction politely acknowledges the political authority of the Preceptor faction to choose a successor, but strongly contest the issue of philosophical authority. Around this time, the bureaucracy started detailed written government records. Sometime between AC 919 and AC 939, Yavi was born in Abbashan. Sometime between AC 939 and AC 969, Nuriya bin Jamal is born into the Awamir tribe. Sometime between AC 944 and AC 974, Nizam al-Babrak is born in Abbashan. Sometime between AC 949 and AC 979, Hala is born in Abbashan. Sometime between AC 957 and AC 962, Uthman, the son of Emir Hani of Abbashan, attempts to retrace the footsteps of Al-Khalim on a pilgrimage to the Kingdom of Undersea. During his travels, Uthman learns of the Irandian culture, maritime commerce, and the rather whimsical tenets of their people's temple philosophy. In AC 967, Uthman bin Hani succeeded his father as the Emir of Abbashan. Sometime between AC 967 and AC 980, Emir Uthman covertly arranged for prayer leader Yavi to set up a sanctuary of the eternal truth in Erendi city. Uthman believes the eternal truth will provide much-needed structure to the Erendians' lives and become very popular. By growing the faith among unbelievers, Uthman believes this will assist the kin's path to the Sultanate. However, the eternal truth proves unpopular with the carefree local culture. Only military elites and merchants looking to trade with the Emirates convert to this rigid philosophy. Sometime between AC 967 and AC 999, Hala joins Yavi in Erendi as his assistant. In AC 972, Saeed Naji is born in Abbashan, the third son of Emir Uthman. He was named Happy Survivor, as he was fortunate to live through a very difficult childbirth with the aid of the palace clerics. In AC 990, the Council of Preceptors confirmed Mohammed al-Khalim as the new Sultan of the Emirates. As Mohammed was a direct descendant of the first Sultan, Sulayman al-Khalim, this also agreed with the succession beliefs of the Kin faction. In AC 993, Emir Uthman of Abbashan vowed to compete politically and economically with Alasia. So Abbashan annexed the middle coastal plain region to the east, containing the ports of Jabur and Fabia, after negotiating with local sheiks. The sheiks decided to agree as the emir promised them caravan trails to Abbashan would be made and he offered them protection from pirates. Perhaps the local sheiks thought they could benefit from being more knowledgeable of foreign sea trade than Abbashan and profit from the increased trade. They probably saw Nicastenia as more knowledgeable of sea trade, and therefore less profitable. Nithia was not a viable option as it was considered shambolic. In AC 998, Azrad, Emir Uthman's firstborn son, went missing. Uthman's mental health declined rapidly after Azrad's disappearance. The Abbashani elders, in consultation with Sultan Mohammed, decided to relieve Uthman of his duties and appointed his promising third son, Saeed Naji, as the new emir. The future history of Abbashan is not set in stone, However, there are upcoming significant events over the next 2 centuries. In the winter of AC 1008, the Wrath of the Immortals War comes close to Abbashan, when Alphatian troop transports unload their main force at Cubia, to the south of Fabia. The local forces are quickly overwhelmed by the Alphatian juggernaut. However, the Alphatians are focused on destroying Thyatis en route to Glantry, and are not in the Emirates to reoccupy. In Caldmont AC 1009, the weak without magic scares and angers the Abbashani. When magic returns, they learn the hated Glantrians were responsible. They are pleased that the Guardian Immortals sunk Alphatia and weakened Thyatis. The Abbashani agitate for the territories of Biatzin and Tel Akbir to be reclaimed from Thyatis. On the 16th of Vatamont AC 1010, the Emirates of Ilaruum joins Karamikos, Darakin, the Shires, and Dengar in forming the Western Defense League. The Abbashani oppose being in league with foreign unbelievers. In AC 1050, Ul-Kalim urges his followers to be more aggressive and xenophobic. A kin faction sultan is appointed, possibly a son of Sayyid Naji. In AC 1200, emissaries from Hulay caught the kin faction sultan, Ali ben Faisal, and his Grand Vizier, Osman ben Aliub, for an alliance in their war against Darakin. The Emirate of Abbashan would be best described as a hereditary vassal monarchy under nominal appointment. Legally, it is an appointed governorship. In practice, it is a hereditary principality. The Sultan is the head of the confederated tribes of the Emirates of Ilaruum and the Way of the Eternal Truth. The kin faction politely tolerates political leadership of sultans who are not descended from Ul-Kalim, but refuse to accept them as heads of the Way of Eternal Truth. The Emir of Abbashan is appointed by the Sultan and swears an oath of fealty, sealed by a truth-telling spell. Although the position of Emir is not hereditary, the preceptor faction has treated it as such, to keep the peace with their kin faction rivals. Small tribes are ruled by hereditary qadis, and larger, or confederated tribes, are ruled by sheikhs. Heirs may be adopted. If there is no heir, a group of tribal elders elects a new tribal chief. Emirs must ratify these successions, but they will only refuse if they have strong grounds to, like abuse of power, or offense of the eternal truth. Maliks rule hereditary malikdoms which often correspond to regions, like the middle coastal plain. Heirs may be adopted. If there is no heir, an emir can either dissolve the malikdom or appoint a new non-hereditary malik who can be removed by the emir. Emirs may also appoint governors called atabegs who act like regents for young or absentee rulers. Emirs appoint begs to govern districts, settlements, or tribal areas. Abbashan's foreign policy is dominated by xenophobia. The preceptor's policy of tolerance of foreigners is ignored. They reject leadership of the eternal truth by any faction, other than their kin faction. Emir Said seeks to improve the economy to compete with Alasia, without having too much contact with unbelievers. By spreading the eternal truth in Erendi, profitable trade with foreign true believers is hoped to eventuate. Covert support for Abbashani brigands and thugs are designed to intimidate rivals or unruly subordinates. Nithya is viewed as thoroughly corrupt and in need of cleansing via a military campaign. Magian fire worshippers are heretics. Nicosthenia is too open to foreigners, making it vulnerable to Thyacian spies. Dithasthenia is viewed as somewhat materialistic. Makistan follows the eternal truth, but are inferior non-Alasians. Internal policies revolve around conservatism and tradition. They aim to maintain the kin hereditary dynasty and their capital, Abbashan town. Maintain the kin's authority over the Way of the Eternal Truth. Create profitable trade routes between the oasis and the coastal towns. Use religious censure, or thugs, to coerce unruly subjects. Maintain the desert nomad way of life and Ul-Kalim's way of the eternal truth. Prioritize military growth over irrigation projects. There are many conflicting groups in Abbashan. The Hazzar versus nomad rivalry is not as intense as other emirates, as the Hazzar of the Abbashan oasis admire the nomads and try to live with austerity and resilience themselves. The desert and oasis tribes view the coastal tribes as soft. In return, the coastal people, especially the assimilated non-Alasians, view the western Abbashani as somewhat barbaric. The fighting Fennec Lupins are seen as inferior to humans, and treated more like sentient pets. There is rivalry between the two Hazar tribes of Abbashan, the Yam and the Waila. The current emir is of the Yam tribe, and the fierce Awamir nomads rarely get along with others outside their tribe. The backbone of government in the Emirates is the efficient national bureaucracy. The Sultan's Grand Vizier heads up the bureaucracy. Each emir also appoints their own Grand Vizier who is subordinate to the Sultan's Grand Vizier. Reporting to the Grand Vizier are 12 national viziers who head up voucheries. Reporting to each vizier is a group of vouchers. Reporting to each voucher are minor vouchers. Minor voucher job titles often include inspector or secretary. Supporting the minor vouchers are numerous clerks, some of whom are also inspectors. Below the clerks are the scribes, and at the bottom of the bureaucracy are the examiners. The higher up the official, the less helpful and available they become. Gifts can help secure an audience with an official. Atabegs and begs appoint their own secretaries, whilst tribal chiefs appoint trusted advisors. Each of the voucheries have offices of varying sizes in Abbashan, except the vouchery of state, which is only located in Ilarum city. The bureaucracy issues licenses and permits. Well permits to dig new wells are issued by the vouchery of water resources, after co-approval from the vouchery of agriculture for vegetation plans, to ensure water is retained. Well licenses from the water resources vouchery are required to operate a well. Wilderness research permits are issued by the vouchery of the provinces to regulate expeditions to potentially dangerous areas, like Nithian tombs, where great evil could be unleashed. Illegal wilderness expeditions are not well policed, but can become an issue if items of interest are brought back to civilization and come to the attention of tax officials. Research permits are issued by the vouchery of sorcery for the study of black magic, i.e. fire-based or necromantic magic. Abbashani thieves are either part of the Banu Sarsan Thieves Guild or a bandit group. Both groups are illegal, however they are often secretly employed by the authorities for investigations or espionage missions. Many of the town beggars are thieves. If caught, these thieves may escape punishment by showing their actions were in line with the ideals of the eternal truth. The guild operates without a charter. First-level thieves are called apprentices. 2nd through 8th level they are called journeymen, and at 9th level and above they are called masters. There is no entrance fee. Dues are 3 dinars a month and the guild gets a 10% cut of income from jobs. The Order of Death is a fanatic cult of thugs who have bases in remote parts of Abbashan. Little is known of this secretive cult, whose members are commonly referred to as the Blue Hoods. They are dedicated to the Kin faction and the way of the eternal truth. They use assassination, kidnappings, and extortion to assist the Kin faction to overthrow the preceptors. Poisoned kuglers and rope are their favored killing methods. The order has some sorcerer assassin members who are often financed by some mysterious Alphatian sorcerers with blue halos to perform missions. Also in a remote part of the desert is the Ribat Sharaf, home to a cloister of mystics from the Fakir's order. These austere true believers study science, water, magic, the stars, and pacifist combat skills. They warn against the corrupting temptation of material wealth. The order usually attracts 70 new recruits a year, of which 56 fail or leave after a year and a further 11 fail to make it through the second year of training. So on average only 3 recruits become mystics each year. In addition to the sorcerers and thieves guilds covered earlier, Abbashan has a number of trades and crafts guilds who have obtained charters from the relevant voucheries. They include tanners, carpenters, masons, smiths, millers, weavers, dyers, potters, bakers, butchers, water carriers, perfumers, scholars and merchantess. The people of the Emirates revere the guardian immortals, which they also refer to as the True Ones, or the Eternal. This encompasses immortals of all the spheres except entropy that are known in the Emirates. The most important immortal is the Old Man of the Sea, known to Thyacians as Proteus. The Old Man of the Sea is the embodiment of water, a precious commodity in a dry land. From their Nether ancestry, they would probably be aware of Votan, known as Odin in the northern reaches. From their Oltec ancestry they would be aware of Otsit Teotl, which their Nithian overlords called Horan. Other peoples call him Ixion. To the Makistani he is Tubak the lawgiver. Also from their Oltec ancestry, they may be aware of Kalaktatla, known to others simply as Ka. In addition to Horan, they would have known Orisis, Isiris, or Valerias to the Thyacians, Ptah, or Magyar to the dwarfs, Fla, Ra, or known as Rathanos elsewhere, and the entropic Thanatos, from their Nithian overlords. The Knoll could be known to the people of the Emirates. He appears to be an opponent of Thanatos and his ally Ranivorous, but could be Ranivorous acting in a schizophrenic manner. The Markistani brought the immortals Yamuga, elsewhere known as Mother Earth, and Krisha to the Alassian basin. It is possible that the Alassians refer to Krisha as Zephyr. Thyacian colonial rule introduced Vanya, Asterius, Terastia, Karotiku, Ilsundal and later Halav. Likewise, the Alphatian colonial overlords introduced their own immortals, Alphatia, Razud, Koryis, Palatarkan, Irindal, and the entropic immortals Alphax and Talitha. And the Alassians have their homegrown immortals, the legendary adventurer Sinbad, and as of the 1st of Muharram SC 168, the newly ascended Al-Kalim. Only males are permitted in Abbashan's armed forces. Abbashan has a classical technological level. Military service is compulsory for true believer males who are fit for service. Abbashan's standing forces represent approximately 1.5% of the population. The emir maintains a palace guard of 50 pikemen with clerical officers. Each of the 3 towns supply a guard who double as a police force led by a mufti. Jabur and Fabia each have a town guard of 20, and Abbashan has 40. Each tribal sheikh has a retinue of 20 personal guards and retainers. They enforce the law among the tribe members. Finally, Jabur and Fabia each have 37 naval personnel, comprising a captain, a navigator, 25 marines, and 10 non-combatant sailors. Each crew man a small sailing ship. The Bir Karim is stationed at Jabur and the Mahmudiyah is at Fabia. The Bir Karim is fitted with a light catapult. In times of war, the nomad tribes can mobilize their mounted archers fairly quickly, averaging about 200 per tribe. As part of a national call to arms, the mounted archers form the bulk of the Emirates divisions. The tribes of Abbashan Oasis assemble as the 8th Division in Abbashan town. Fabia is the assembly point for the 9th Division, which draws on the nomads of the middle coastal plain. Each division is led by a 10th level fighter sheikh. The deputy commander is an 8th level fighter. 10 8th level cleric heroes provide healing support. Each regiment of 120 troops is led by a 4th level fighter, and each squad of 40 troops is led by a 3rd level fighter. There are no formal military ranks, noble ranks are used instead. The ports of the middle coastal plain are at the lower end of the scale in world rankings. Fabia is a Class E, minor port. Its dock can handle ships of 120 hull points or less, its dock capacity is 999 hull points and it has a dry dock facility. Jabur is a Class F port, a mere anchorage. It can only accommodate ships of 80 hull points or less and has a moorage capacity of 499 hull points. The Emirates have moral and civil laws. Moral laws are derived from the Nameh and the Edicts of Al-Kalim. Most moral crimes are punished by public censure, leading to a loss of reputation and penalties on reaction rolls. Merchants are likely to lose business. Oath-breakers are automatically magically cursed when they break an oath, as a result of the truth-telling spell cast to bind their oath. The type of curse was specified by the oath-taker as part of their sworn oath. For example, swearing that the immortal guardians blind me if I break this oath. If offenders are clerics or faris, they may also be punished by their immortal by not granting them spells. Successfully completing quests important to the way of the eternal truth may atone for some of these transgressions. Some moral crimes also involve civil crimes, like practicing black magic without a permit, an offense that is punished by expulsion from the eternal truth. The most serious offense occurs among the tribal nomads, who consider failure to revere the immortal guardians at sunrise and sunset each day as a capital offense. Civil law is derived from the Emirates' constitution, edicts issued by the Sultan of the Emirates and the Emir of Abbashan, regulations published by the voucheries, records of tribal law, legal precedents, and legal opinions of scholarly bodies. It is complex and often contradictory, which can work in the defendant's favor, especially if they are wealthy enough to hire a scholar advocate to represent them. Fines and compensation payments are common punishments. The amount is judged by the intent of the guilty party and their financial position. Public censure is also used, often in conjunction with a form of public humiliation linked to the crime and the requirement to lecture groups likely to commit this offense. Corporal punishment, in the form of floggings and maiming, is applied to more serious crimes, such as theft for profit. Imprisonment is often another option to corporal punishments and fines. A lot of crimes revolving around illegal water usage can lead to imprisonment. Expulsion from a tribe or the emirate is another punishment option for unsavory crimes like stealing from a friend or tribal member, practicing black magic and concealing sorceress ability. Capital punishment is reserved for the worst crimes, like treason, well poisoning, particularly nefarious thefts, and exporting a superb Alassian horse. Outside of urban areas, tribal chiefs hear civil cases, and will also judge moral cases if there are no available holy men or itinerant clerics. Wandering faris serve a similar role in remote areas where there are no chiefs. In urban areas, the court of scholars hear moral cases, whilst magistrates preside over civil cases. All judges are expected to follow the ritual of judgment. This involves initial contemplation and observation, followed by weighing the evidence, and finally judging on knowledge, rather than tradition or superstition, in a solemn, methodical manner. Law enforcement is the role of the tribal chief and his personal bodyguard outside of urban areas. The towns are under the jurisdiction of the mufti, who directs the town guard to maintain order. Additionally, vigilante justice is quite common, as men, women and children do their bit. All citizens have the right to bear arms, and will at least carry a dagger to be able to carry out the obligation of defending the honor of the eternal truth, the immortal guardians, their extended family or their tribe. Everyone has the right to attend the emir's weekly open court to raise matters. Slaves have all the rights of servants, except the right to change employers and their type of work. In non-urban areas, nomadic tribes adhere to the rights of passage and land use, unless there is scarcity, which leads to a might equals right situation. Guests may expect up to 3 days hospitality and protection from hosts. Irrigation projects are obligated to be researched by chiefs and clerics, and funded by the wealthy. The Emirate of Abbashan and its tribes use banners rather than coats of arms. The Black Banner of Abbashan also represents the kin faction. Each of the 17 tribes have their own banner. Education is provided by the clergy. The Nameh is the main focus of study and is in accordance with the second article of faith. Those who wish to study other fields will need to join the Ribat monastery or attend a university in one of the more progressive settlements, like Ilaruam. Art and architecture is rather Spartan in the austere Emirate of Abbashan. Artisans struggle to make a living, restricted to the local market. Abbashan does not attract foreign artists, and local talented ones are inclined to move to a more favorable location. As frivolity is frowned upon, most entertainments revolve around martial contests and storytelling. Honor duels to first blood attract crowds, best of 3 wrestling bouts, hunting using trained birds, nomad riding contests, goat wrestling contests and mock wars, and polo. Spectators also enjoy watching the military order examination tournaments, and riding and military contests between local and regional champions at the Feast of Ul-Kalim festival. The Emirates mint 3 coins, the gold piece dinar, the silver piece dirham and the copper piece fals. Platinum is very rare, so it is not minted. The Emirates do not alloy silver and gold to mint electrum. Foreign coins are not accepted in Abbashan. They can be converted to local currency for a 15% fee before entering the emirate. Money changers charge a 20% fee to convert gems and treasure to coins. As Abbashan has virtually no foreigners and less prosperous trade, it does not generate as much tax revenue as other emirates. Tribal chiefs collect monthly taxes in terms of livestock and their byproducts worth 10 dinars per person. They skim some for themselves and pay the rest to the emir. In the settlements, tax collector officials gather monthly agricultural produce from the farmers and coins from the hazzar, equating to 10 dinars per person. Some goods are stored, whilst the rest is sold. The emir skims some of the tax collected for his own budget, before sending the remainder to Ilaruam. Some of the funds are channeled into the military to provide national service and some go into public works. The emir is paid a salary by the sultan to govern the emirate. Military or public service, like street cleaning, equating to 10 dinars per month is also required. There is conjecture that the vouchery of taxation is considering change to the tax system as the actual revenue flowing into Alaruum is much less than what is collected. Phaeacian Imperial Geopolitical Intelligence estimates tax revenue of only about 3 dirhams per person finds its way to the national treasury. The current poll tax of 10 dinars per month isn't affordable. It could be changed to an income tax, more in line with what each social class can afford, somewhere around 1% of the current tax paid. True believers donate approximately 10% of their income to charity. Perhaps 2.5% is donated to the sanctuaries of the eternal truth and the rest is given directly to the needy. The Alassian desert receives less than 10 inches of rain per year. Spring and summer are the wettest seasons. Daytime temperatures range from the low 50s degrees Fahrenheit in winter to the hundreds in summer. Nighttime temperatures are 20 degrees cooler. Sandstorms regularly occur, most notably in the summer. They usually last a few hours and can be waited out if cover is available. Severe sandstorms can occur weekly during spring and summer. They last between 3 hours and 3 days, featuring gale force winds, often tornadoes, and can cause insanity and/or lost caravans. The middle coastal plain receives up to 30 inches of rain per year, mainly during winter and spring. Daytime temperatures range from the low 50s in winter to the 80s in summer. Nighttime temperatures are 10 degrees cooler. The coastal wind blows from the south in the winter and spring, and comes from the north for the remainder of the year. The oasis town of Abbashan is the capital of the emirate with a mainly Alassian population of 4,300. It is ruled by Emir Saeed Naji. The town council runs the city under a charter granted by the emirs of Abbashan. The town has a reputation for being clean, with street cleaning a civic duty. It is a walled town built on a tell with a single gate in the west. The outer wall is protected by 14 towers. The northwestern quarter is the upper-class district, separated from the rest of the town by an inner wall with 3 towers. The emir's palace lies in the southwest of the upper-class district, bordered by the outer wall to the west, the inner wall to the south and the upper-class souk to the east. The palace contains a splendid garden courtyard in reverence to the dream of desert garden. Open court is held here every Yawm al-Jamaat after sunset reverence. The wealthy district souk is located adjacent to the inner gate to the south and the emir's palace to the west. Whilst lacking the luxury goods of other upper-class markets throughout Mystara, superb horses can be bought here from nomad traders. To the east of the wealthy district souk is the sanctuary of the eternal truth and the kin of the prophet. Prayer leaders, assistants, and scholars reside here. Guest rooms for traveling clerics and faris are available. Outside the upper-class district, there are 2 souks, one just inside the main gate and one in the center of town. Lesser quality goods, like second-hand weapons and armor from the military, can be bought here at bargain prices. Most buildings are constructed from sun-dried bricks. The town contains 4 public wells, one in the southwest, one to the north of the central souk, one in the upper-class souk and one in the east of the upper-class district. The populace comprises the noble families of the 2 Hazar tribes, faris, military officers, bureaucrats, clerics, scholars, Alassian visitors and pilgrims, a small merchant and artisan class, commoners, fellows who work the surrounding oasis farms, servants, prisoners, and 86 slaves. Little is known of Abbashan town's history. It was probably founded sometime between BC 500 and AC 800, probably by a bus. Emir Saeed Naji of Abbashan is known to be a 16th-level fighter in AC 1011. It is not known if he was the emir in AC 1000 or what level he was at that time. Assuming he was 27 years old at the start of AC 1000, he might be 12th level. We know that he is a little extravagant, which clashes with the usual Abbashani austerity. He recently bought dozens of huge feather fans and hundreds of multicolored plumes for his cavalry and carriages, from Fletcher Island in Erendi. Sharif ibn Murad is the Grand Vizier of Abbashan. Born in AC 941 to a minor merchant family in the oasis town of Abbashan, Sharif was educated by the scholars at the Sanctuary of the Eternal Truth. He joined the vouchery of taxation as an examiner. He rose in the ranks of the bureaucracy, distinguishing himself as a shrewd negotiator and an efficient administrator. Emir Uthman of Abbashan appointed Sharif as his Grand Vizier in AC 996. He is pragmatic and patient, preferring negotiation and paperwork to open conflict. He is ruthless when necessary, and will sacrifice individuals to preserve his goals. He is cultured and erudite, quoting poetry and passages from the Nameh. He is secretly sentimental. He keeps a faded letter from his first teacher in his desk. Sharif is committed to the Kin faction and their destiny to rule the Emirates. He is behind a lot of the questionable actions of the Kin faction, like dealings via subordinates with the Blue Halo's Sorcerer Assassins, the Order of Death Assassins, brigands, and the Banu Sarsan Thieves Guild. It is possible that Sharif was behind the disappearance of Saeed's eldest brother, Azrad, in AC 998. Sheikh Harun ibn Wa'il of the Wa'ila Hazzar tribe in Abbashan town is the main rival to the emir, who is from the Yam tribe. He was born in AC 942 and was raised in the Wa'ila estate of Abbashan's upper-class quarter. He is opposed to the emir's pursuit of foreign trade to strengthen Abbashan's economy to allow it to compete with Alasia. Harun believes the appointment of the relatively young Emir Saeed after the abdication of his father in AC 998 has given the Wa'ila tribe a chance to unseat their Yam rivals from the Kin faction leadership. He is pragmatic and urbane, being fluent in customs, laws, and rituals. He is proud of his tribe, defending its traditions and privileges. He is generous to his tribe, but stern with outsiders, and is a shrewd negotiator. The majority of the town guard of Abbashan are from the Wa'ila tribe. Rashid al-Nuri is the most senior prayer leader at the Sanctuary of the Eternal Truth in Abbashan town. He was born in AC 947 into the Yam tribe on a small farm in the Abbashan oasis. As an impressive young exponent of philosophical discourse, Rashid was encouraged to join the way of the scholar by his teachers at the Sanctuary of the Eternal Truth in Abbashan town. After serving as an assistant, Rashid was promoted to prayer leader on account of his steady voice and just reputation. He is committed to the Kin faction's philosophical leadership of the Eternal Truth. Prayer leader Yavi is more senior and more powerful than Rashid, but his relocation to Erendi city has elevated Rashid's position. Rashid will happily volunteer rivals to set up new sanctuaries in the lands of the unbelievers. He is a strong opponent of luxuries, and takes note of those who give generously to charity in accordance with his sermons. Because of this, he hears of moral law breaches from beggars and commoners. Mufti Ali al-Hafiz was born in AC 969 in a small village of Abbashan Oasis as part of the Yam tribe. He showed great promise in martial matters at a young age and was sponsored by the Yam tribe to enter the military order of the Pike. Iskandar was posted as a palace guard for the Emir of Abbashan. Last year, Emir Saeed appointed him to the position of Mufti of Abbashan town for his loyal service. As a relatively young and inexperienced Mufti, he is being challenged by some uncooperative town militia who support the Wa'ila tribe. Ali is measured and patient, speaking slowly with carefully chosen words for clarity. Devout and conservative, he places tradition and communal stability above personal ambition. He is compassionate toward the poor, but stern with those who flout the law. He is reluctant to engage in courtly scheming, preferring to influence through his deeds. Nizam al-Babrak is an 8th-level fighter, serving Emir Saeed as his Faris. Nizam is currently being treated for an unknown ailment by clerics in the village of Kirkuk, in the Emirate of Dithastina. Nizam does not recall how this came about. He was born in AC 955 into the family of Babrak, a Faris of the Abbashan Oasis and member of the Yam tribe. Nizam entered the military order of the Arrow and earned his spurs fighting raiders and leading caravan escorts across the Alasian wastes. He rose through merit and battlefield steadiness to the rank of captain in the Emirates' 8th Division. His deeds earned him entry into the Order of the Lance, as a Knight of the Desert Rose. He was then appointed Faris by the Emir of Abbashan. Recently, he was attacked in the Alasian desert by a sorcerer who cursed him with a disease and wiped Nizam's memory of the attack. He is humorless, devout, heroic, and contemptuous of foreigners and unbelievers, but he will follow his destiny wherever it leads him. While recovering, he believes the next part of his destiny will be revealed, allowing him to track down the source of his ailment. Nuri ibn Jamal, Notchblade, is a caravan leader from the nomadic Awamir tribe of the Rub al-Khali. He is currently leading a caravan carrying spices and coffee from Abbashan to Salonika in Darakin, via Dithystina. Nuri grunts disdainfully before speaking. His nickname, Notchblade, comes from the fervent and indiscriminate application of his scimitar to various victims. He is a fanatic follower and supporter of the Kin faction, being very hostile to foreigners and unbelievers, insulting and challenging them at every opportunity. Nasty, humorless, and rigidly traditional, he is otherwise perfectly honorable and devout. Khalid ibn Sarsan is the urbane, ruthless guildmaster of the Banu Sarsan Thieves Guild in Abbashan, a shadow broker who runs fences, plans heists, and keeps the town's underworld in uneasy balance with the emir's rule. Born in AC 953 into the Banu Sarsan as the son of a fence, Khalid learned the guild's trades early: lockcraft, strapping candles to tortoises, shadow routes, and the art of plausible deniability. He rose by outwitting rivals and negotiating protection pacts with merchants, beggars, and minor officials. He is calm and calculating, speaking softly, but with authority. He is charismatic and urbane, charming magistrates and beggars alike. Ruthless about loyalty, betrayal is punished swiftly and publicly. Khalid is pragmatic, preferring bribery, blackmail, and legal loopholes to needless bloodshed. This branch of the guild is rather impoverished, given the austere Abbashani and the low urban population compared to Alarum city. Harith bin Mukhtar is the guildmaster of the Order of Death Thugs Guild based in a remote region of Abbashan. Born in AC 947 in the town of Abbashan to a minor house of caravan guards, Harith apprenticed in the town's Guild of Headsmen before vanishing for a decade, exploring foreign cities. He returned with foreign techniques of stealth, poisons, and ritual discipline. He is coldly ceremonial, patient, and exacting. He seeks to overthrow the preceptor faction through assassination, extortion, and kidnappings. Rashid al-Zahir is the secretary of the administrative province of Rub al-Khali, stationed in the town of Abbashan. Born in AC 961 to a middling merchant family in Sinsamenu, Rashid became an adventurer until he recently retired to take up the post of secretary in the vouchery of the provinces. Energetic and with enough experience to know how to sell danger as destiny, he was posted to Abbashan to try to recruit and organize exploratory parties into the empty quarter wilderness of the Alasian desert. Silver-tongued and opportunistic, he sees potential in every ruin and every restless noble. Organized and impatient, he hates delay and loves a signed contract. As a pragmatic idealist, he believes taming the wild will bring prosperity. Socially adept, he is comfortable in palaces and caravanserais alike. Rashid's tales of treasure and ruins is bound to spark the interest of both nobles and adventurers. Nadir ibn Farouk is the master of the Fakir's mystics of the Emirate of Sharaf in a remote area of Abbashan. Nadir was born in AC 945 into the Waila tribe of the Abbashan Oasis. When he was 12, a wandering mystic from the Emirate of Sharaf recognized his talent and brought him to their hidden desert cloister. After 2 years of training, Nadir became a mystic. He advanced quickly, balancing martial arts mastery with deep philosophical study. Eventually, Nadir bested his superiors in martial challenges and became the master of the cloister. He is softly spoken, patient and wise. He prefers questions to statements, moves with deliberate grace, is suspicious of politics but understands them deeply, and rarely shows anger. When he does, it is cold and silent. Qadi Qadim al-Ri of the Ul-Saga fighting Fennec Lupin clan was born during a sandstorm in AC 966. At age 6, he began traditional Lupin physical training, involving desert running, scent tracking, and wind listening exercises. He was assigned to the clan's scout initiates, a common path for fighting Fennec youths. At age 11, he completed his first fully nomadic circuit of the clan's traditional migration route. At 14, Qadim encountered Alasians for the first time and participated in the water ritual greeting. In AC 981, he was apprenticed to the clan's master of the hunt. He learnt ambush tactics, caravan escort customs, and the desert survival methods common to Alasian nomads. At age 18, Kardim was part of a hit-and-run counterattack against a band of unbeliever brigands harassing caravans. His swift movement and coordination with other Fennec scouts earned him a place among the elite warriors of his clan. In AC 987, Kardim won a non-lethal duel with an older Fennec vying to be named the clan Kardi's heir. Over the next 3 years, he traveled extensively with caravan masters, learning trade routes, Alasian political geography, and interpreting signs of the desert. He began shaping his philosophy of diplomacy first, but swift to defend. In AC 993, the clan Kardi retired and Kardim succeeded him. In addition to the fauna mentioned earlier, other creatures can be encountered in the Emirate of Abbashan. Carrion crawlers haunt wilderness ruins. Lions roam the coastal plains. They are revered for their nobility and intelligence and sometimes kept as pets. Blue dragons are rarely seen. They are usually spotted flying over remote desert areas, acting as mounts for Markistani sorcerers. The large blue dragon king, Marudi, lairs about 80 miles northwest of Abbashan town. He is primarily focused on the Hedjazi oasis as his main watering hole. Caravans or pilgrims traveling between Abbashan and Ilaruum may encounter the illusion of an Alasian prince or merchant, a trick of the mischievous Marudi. Gold dragons are also seldom seen, unless ridden by Markistani sorcerers, flying over the remote desert areas. Lesser Ifrit from the Plane of Fire can be encountered in the desert wilderness, in remote desert ruins or contained in bottles. Greater Ifrit are only encountered when responding to cries of mistreatment by Lesser Ifrit. Sea hags inhabit the coastal waters, sometimes attacking shipping or pilgrims trying to emulate Ul-Kalim's journey to the Undersea Kingdom. Purple worms can be encountered in the desert wilderness. Giant lizards, giant snakes and giant spiders can be encountered in the desert wilderness and also as guardians of treasures or sorcerers. Sphinxes may occasionally be encountered in the desert wilderness as treasure guardians, or servants or companions of sorcerers. A campaign based in Abbashan creates some issues due to the local xenophobia. The Abbashani or kin are portrayed as antagonists to open-minded player characters. An Abbashani natives campaign will likely be restricted to the Emirates, as a whole party of intolerant characters are unlikely to succeed in foreign lands. Although a mission to spread the eternal truth may work in certain circumstances, like in ERND, the characters will have to decide which Abbashani group they support, as they will start to discover some questionable dealing when serving the kin faction. The Preceptor faction could be the main antagonist of the campaign. The PCs must work to install a kin faction member as the Sultan. Will they switch sides when they discover kin faction dealings with the Blue Halos or the Order of Death? Other campaigns could focus on dealing with the corrupt Nithian Emirate, with its brigands, ancient horrors, and Magian fire worshippers. A foreigners campaign would be difficult, unless the PCs had some way to blend in as locals. The foreigners would no doubt be working against the kin faction and its more nefarious connections. The campaign would benefit from opportunities to make riding checks, storytelling checks, deal with desert survival and the role-playing of honor challenges. Here are some Abbashani adventure ideas. The Abbashani government is seeking to build caravan trails from the ports of Jabor and Fabia to Abbashan town and beyond. The PCs could be asked to clear and guard the area. Challenges could include hungry creatures, opposition from xenophobes and Abbashan, and the logistics of traversing the 200-foot escarpment barrier between the desert and the plain. The characters could be recruited as caravan guards by Notchblade. The journey becomes problematic as Notchblade and his Awamir nomad guards hurl insults at foreigners in the hope it will spark a fight. Alternately, they may just encounter Notchblade's caravan or have to raid it for some reason. The PCs join the Awamir desert nomads on a mission to the north. As they continue the journey, the PCs realize this group are no better than brigands, raiding a Nithian-based tribe. The PCs will have to choose if they continue to ride with the brigands or not. They may discover faint hints that this raid has been ordered by someone higher up than the Awamir Sheikh. As a complication, the raid disturbs Nithian horrors from an ancient ruin. Emir Said, or a lesser ruler, hears of a fabled treasure. One of his advisors asks the PCs to join an expedition to recover it. Secretary of the administrative province of the Rub ul-Khali, Rashid al-Zahir could entice companion-level PCs to venture into the empty quarter to try to find enough of a water source to start a new dominion there, or to seek a fabled treasure. Particularly devout and adventurous true believers could attempt to replicate Al-Kalim's pilgrimage to the Undersea Kingdom, especially those seeking immortality on the path of the dynast. Whilst the Emirates campaign favors following the path of the dynast in the sphere of time under the patronage of Al-Kalim or the Old Man of the Sea, other paths are available. For the path of the polymath, the candidate may have to leave the Emirates if their species changes, returning when they again become human. Ka, Kagya, Mart, or Valerias could act as the sponsor. The path of the epic hero in the sphere of thought could be sponsored by Odin, Zephyr, Halav, Karotiku, Koryiz, Asterius, Numina, or Sinbad. The path of the paragon is probably the most difficult, as the Alphatian 36th level magic user, Barrymore, is well on the way to achieving this feat in the Emirates, and would have to be duelled and driven off. Possible sponsors would be Ixion, Rathanos, Fla, Terastia, Alphatia, Razud, and Palatarkan. In terms of disease, during a drought on the coastal plain, there is a 1% chance of contracting desert meningitis for a period of 1 to 6 days, that temporarily reduces intelligence by 1 point per day until cured. Death occurs after a week if it is not cured. Symptoms include headaches and loss of consciousness. This concludes our gazeteer-style look at the xenophobic Emirate of Abbashan, home of the Kin faction.